It's a small book, and it's in between Jonah and Nahum. Yeah, Mike. And it's kind of hard to teach from the New Testament or the Old Testament because people have an idea that the Old Testament God is different from the New Testament God, and it's not true at all. There's no way that could be. God's the same forever. He doesn't change like shifting shadows. There's no way he could be different. He's the same. He's just misunderstood. And the whole dealing with Israel, even though, Paul says that all these things were written as examples to us that we should not do as they did. And that's how I read a lot of the Old Testament when it has to do with Israel, because they did the same things we do with our relationship with God. They failed in the same ways we did. That's how I read it. And in this section right here, I just want to share for offering, because almost like God's asking them, why have they been doing what they were doing, living in rebellion, all different types of ways, just like everybody else. We all do different things. We live in rebellion different ways to God. And God's asking them, what do you have to say against me? What have I done to make you this way? And let me start reading it. It says, listen to what the Lord says. Stand up and plead your case to the mountains. Let the hills hear what you have to say. Hold on, sorry. I'm going to read it from the NIV. I forgot. It says, listen to what the Lord says. Stand up, plead my case before the mountains, and let the hills hear what you have to say. That was their accusation against God. Now this is what God says. Hear the mountains, the Lord's accusation. Listen, you everlasting foundations of the earth, for the Lord has a case against his people. He is lodging a charge against Israel. And this is what God says to Israel. My people, what have I done to you? Now, how have I burdened you? Answer me. I brought you out of Egypt and redeemed you from the land of slavery. I sent Moses to lead you, also Aaron and Miriam. My people, remember what Balak, king of Moab, plotted, and what Balaam, son of Beor, answered. Remember your journey from Shittim to Gilgal, that you may know the righteous acts of the Lord. And almost like they had a complaint against God, a reason for their rebellion. And then God put it in their face. Look what everything that I've done for you. And in the same way, it could be said to us today regarding salvation, how salvation has been freely given us, how blessings have been freely given to us. There's nobody that could say, I earned it. There's nobody that could stand above anybody else and have any type of pride. And so when God tells them this, they have a feeling like, what are we going to do now? How are we going to get right with God, right? So this is where it goes to. It says, this is the people speaking. With what shall I come before the Lord and bow down before the exalted God? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with 1,000 rams and 10,000 rivers of olive oil? Shall I offer my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? And that's the first thing. That's what they know. They're trying to, offer something to God on the outside in order to cover up for their sin or something to make them feel better. I don't know what it is, but there's a lot of people, and not a lot of people, a lot of us deal with, or let me read it right here. It says, he has shown you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. These are the things that are the most important to God. Only from a person who walks justly, walks in mercy and humbly, could truly offer to God something that is not covered for your sin, but it's gratitude because you've been saved from sin. And that's the heart that God asks people to give with. Because Paul says, don't give reluctant, that means half-hearted. Don't give out of compulsion, which means obligation, and it means force. And that's what the law did. It forced you to do it. It told you what to do. God doesn't tell you what to do, but he's given you everything. So with that in mind, you have to think about what God has given you, and you need to get it right. If you're not doing what God's called you to do, or the right thing, not just in church, the right thing in your lives. If you're not walking in mercy, that means looking at somebody else and thinking they deserve some punishment. They deserve something that you don't. We all deserve the same. There's no different. And to walk humbly, no pride. And that's the only way you could truly give out of gratitude. And like Paul says, a cheerful giver. So that's what I have.